Welcome off the post. I'm Russ Cohen. We got Anthony Mingione. And how are you?
Doing okay today. Russell, how are you, sir?
Pretty good. This is a hockey show, but we're also a show of younger brothers here. We're all younger brothers.
No, we're not.
No, you're not the youngest?
No, I'm the oldest.
Oh, you're the oldest. Oh, I thought you were part of the group.
No, sorry. I'm not in the crew.
Well, you suck.
Yep, I know.
Michael Jello, Mike, how are you?
Well, without the glasses today, because I look so much better without them.
That's not the reason. Where are your glasses? Did you break them?
No. It's the glare from the light.
Oh, I see. All right. That's good to have a change. That's fine. So let's start off talking about the Winter Classic. Because it's the one game of the year where everybody likes to have a bitch fest about and point out that is it at the end? Is it not worth it anymore? Is it this? Is it that? Okay. So on average, if you have it in a football stadium, now I know the 2026 is going to be at Lone Depot Park, and they're not used to having sellouts of any kind because the Marlins play there and they never sell out.
Well, the World Baseball Classic had a pretty.
Yes,
pretty
that's
packed.
the only time, but not
the only time I've ever seen that place packed.
Yeah, because all the Cuban area of Miami. No, never mind.
Right, and this one will be hard to sell out there too. But for a football stadium, there's a hard number. The hard number is $5 million is made for that game. Now, the old number for an NHL game used to be like $1 million. It's probably up to like $1.5 million. So obviously, that's a big thing. TV, we'll talk about that in a minute because that's definitely changing, and I don't know why. I don't have an answer on that one for sure. But yeah, we got Rangers, Panthers, and then I saw that at Raymond James Stadium. What is it, Bruins, Tampa? Is that?
Yeah, it's Lightning and Bruins. Right. Yeah,
and that one they'll make more money, but I don't love the venue. I'll be honest. I haven't been in Raymond James Stadium, but I know a guy who goes to games there occasionally, and I've driven by it, and I don't know. I looked online. They seem
it's the area and around Raymond James. It's a bit of a mixture of some residential, obviously a decent amount of businesses. I wouldn't say it's in the middle of nowhere. I would say it's kind of, honestly, there's some way if there's a comparison I could make, it's kind of like the sports, not quite like the sports complex in Philly, where it's not downtown. How reachable, I guess, is the question. What is at least in Philly, you at least have the Broad Street line to get you down there.
Than there is like at Raymond James for a football game.
I mean, it's unique in that respect. Some of the and I know they've been working a lot on the infrastructure with the highways down there, and they've been working on it for quite some time because, again, it's a city that's growing rapidly, Tampa.
Right.
In terms of its population, the amount of people who've moved down there. And I know this because my sister-in-law lives there. Yeah. So I've seen it since its, era of, when it was still relatively quiet to.
And Orlando, who I do Jets rehab, lives down there too. So he tells me about Tampa.
Yeah. And it's there. You could see, I wouldn't say it's not in the middle of, like, in some ways, like I always think of like right. The Panthers arena. The Panthers arena is like really far. That was the one thing I always said when we covered the draft. I was surprised how far off it was, and how close to the swamp it actually was.
Sunrise is like what, 40 minutes away from Fort Lauderdale. It's
It's a long drive. It's a decent length drive.
Or it's like Canada, and we'll leave it there. And we'll get to the World Juniors in a few. But the point of this one is, yes, the ratings have been going down. The one common denominator, there's two common denominators. The first one is TNT, and then the other one is there, like, are people getting worn out by some of the same teams? Is it one? Is it both? Is it all of them? Let's discuss.
Okay. I think for me, there is a bit of Blackhawks fatigue. I do. Yeah. They've been in a ton. The Bruins have been in it a lot too, and I do think there's a little bit of that to it. I hate to say it. At the same time, though, there is something to be said for the fact that it's been good. We've had the Winter Classic for a decade plus now. Mm-hmm. And by its very nature, I think there is a bit of people watch it on TV and they kind of go, it's kind of cool. To me, it's always been a better live local event to attend than it may or may not necessarily be for TV. And the novelty, I think, for TV has kind of may have worn off for that. And I think I think that there is something to be said for that, Russ. But do I think it's
seems to me still to be a bigger outlet to cover a game like that than TNT. Like, I don't know the hard numbers, but I'm guessing NBC has a bigger reach.
Yeah, because it's a broadcast network as opposed to, we know the ESPN and TNT are in what, 90, over 90% of households, but it's not 100%, whereas an ABC affiliate is in 100.
Right.
And there's an advantage there.
I do think there's a little bit of a complication too. Again, the one thing certainly, ratings have been going down a little bit. I do, and we've had this discussion on off air about the college football playoff now being a very unique beast now, which is basically now, if it's continuing the way it's going to do, is going to eat up it's basically going to eat up the holiday season. Now you're starting basically before Christmas with 4 playoff games now versus it was just 4 games just then. And now you're looking at with 4 teams, and now you got 12.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that definitely diverts attention, especially if they're all kind of those bowl games are happening around the same time, and they're not sort of a finality, that there's still a continuation of it. I think there's something there is something to it. Is it a big thing? Again, if you're talking about battling for TV, if you're talking about battling for people watching stuff on television, and that the NHL has to move to New Year's Eve now, where people are kind of prepping themselves. Like New Year's Day is kind of one of those things. The advantage, I think, of the Winter Classic has always been is kind of you roll out from your revelry, and then around 2-3 o'clock that game's on, and you'll plop down on the couch, and a lot of people will have maybe New Year's parties. And I've had plenty of New Year's parties at my parents' place in Deptford in New Jersey, where I've had it on and people were watching it, but then we have flip in and around.
Yeah, you have a Bloody Mary to take the edge off after a night of imbibing, but okay, this is the thing, because the first, we know the first one was Montreal Edmonton, but the first actual Winter Classic was the one here.
Yeah.
Right.
And it got off to a remarkable start because the snow flow effect, and it was optically stunning. And I think a lot of people think that the best one was the big house with Toronto and Detroit with the snowstorm. You can debate, but I think that this year the reason the ratings were down was it was a dog matchup. It was St. Louis and Chicago, and there's Blackhawk fatigue. But the Blackhawks are not a very good team right now. Bedard
Bedard's not exactly in Bedard's year too. Is he's having a sophomore slump? There's no question about it. By comparison,
St. Louis has gone through a coaching change, so they're starting to bounce back, but they're not doing fantastic right now. So I think matchup is part.
They haven't picked the bad '90s song yet. Once they do that, they'll be fine.
Yes, thank you, Laura Branigan. But
was that a '90s song?
I don't know.
That was an '80s. So that's an '80s song.
Yeah, that's high school for probably like high school for me.
I thought it was early '90s, '80s. That's fine. Whatever.
Yeah. But the point is that I think matchup is important. Obviously, venue is important. When it was Lake Tahoe, it was visually stunning. But I think it's gotten.
Well, Lake Tahoe had ice problems.
It had ice problems.
Oh, absolutely.
The problem here is it's gotten to be old hat, and I think they need to reinvent it a little bit. I think going to Florida is fine. I think if they play a game in Vegas or something like that, or Dallas or something like that, that's spread it around. Go to California, that's great.
I think they have to have some assurances in Vegas, Mike, because that game between the Kings and Rangers back in the '90s, that was in the '90s, did have all that fog. And maybe there's a reason they haven't done it in Vegas yet because of atmospheric conditions. It could be.
Yeah, the technology. If the technology doesn't work there, then you can't do it there. But I think what they need to do, you're gonna with the college football playoff, you're gonna have to get off of New Year's Eve, New Year's Day.
Mm-hmm.
My idea was I think the one in Raymond James Stadium is going to be in between the NFC and AFC Championship next year and the Super Bowl. So that's replace the All-Star game or merge the.
And you're also replacing the Pro Bowl too, because basically the Pro Bowl is not the Pro Bowl anymore. It's more.
They have a tug of war in the Pro Bowl.
Exactly. Right. So in this case, you have a perfect. I do agree with that concept of experiment with that window. It's just it does kind of suck because again, I think it had become part of people's holiday season.
Yeah.
And it's just, but the problem is, it's like we've also talked about how the NBA had Christmas. And now the NFL's moved in on it. So now how special is Christmas necessarily going to be when you almost have too much sports.
Instead of having an event,
too much sports. Let's start there.
Instead of having an event centered around 2 teams, have the All-Star game and the All-Star festivities at an outdoor event like that. Now, okay, I understand.
I always wanted the All-Star game to be turned into the outdoor event because I think for a little while people will be very into it. Even you might watch, Mike.
Yeah, no,
You'll be like, oh no, somebody's gonna get hurt. I gotta watch.
Well, that's always a concern, Russ. I mean, only nervous. I'm a nervous Nelly, Russ, when it comes like that. But now the thing is, I know like the Winter Classic is a separate event and the All-Star game is a separate event. In that instance, you're merging the two. But I think it's getting to the point now where both of them are getting to be sort of passe. And if you merge the two, maybe it breathes new life into it. I mean, I'm all for getting rid of the All-Star game. And in the years that you have the Olympics and in the years that you have the World Cup or the Four Nations or whatever they're going to do, then you do a Winter Classic at some other point in the year. But I think that's the solution. But will the NHL do that? No, because it makes too much goddamn sense.
Well, hold on. I mean, again, we have to remember Wrigley was still full. I know people that went. There was a lot of money to be made.
As a live event, Russ, yes, absolutely. It will always, I think if you have the game, you're always going to get, I think you'll get the stadiums pretty much filled.
Right. Russ, that's never the argument. The All-Star game, the seats are filled. It's just a bad game.
Well, All-Star games is harder to fill. It really is. All-Star games are harder to fill. Winter Classic isn't as hard to fill. And if you're a team...
Because the game, at the end of the day, the game does count.
Right. Game counts, but also you're pulling in $3 to $5 million from that game, and that does well for the team that year, the team that hosts it. And the city, as an example, like when it was in Seattle, they had, and I never saw a final total, so I'm just going with the total they thought. They figured it was going to bring in about $30 million of business. We know that those numbers are always higher than whatever it normally is, but it does fill bars. It does get people in the area bustling.
It's always been that. And I think there's we do a lot, I think, because there's so much focus on TV.
Right.
That's now that's whether or not this event is successful.
Is just another
when at the very end, at the end of the day, really, and that's the part that I think is kind of the dichotomy of the Winter Classic or any of the outdoor games, is that the game is really for the people that are there.
Right.
It's almost like the polar opposite of the way the world is now, where everything is catered to television, when in reality, these events are meant to be communal and meant to be, bring fan bases, together, multiple fan bases together at once for what is basically an event. And anymore, I feel like, everything now is so focused on television that or TV or streaming or whatever, that whatever the people that are live are kind of an afterthought almost.
Yeah, but then you also find out which rock bands can perform outside and which can't. Smashing Pumpkins. But you find that out too.
Yeah, I mean you
gotta admit, you may not have watched a minute of the Winter Classic, but you knew the Smashing Pumpkins didn't sound good at the Winter Classic. Everybody found that out.
Again, it's tough depending on the acoustics.
No, I know, but I'm saying the enormity of the event.
Yeah,
it's possible for you to find out, or anybody to find out, that they were there and what happened. Because if this was just the Smashing Pumpkins playing, I don't know, at an outdoor venue in Toronto for one concert, chances are it wouldn't have had that kind of focus on it.
People would have walked out.
Probably.
Possible.
So anyhow, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with it. We can merge two teams here and talk about Flyers and Leafs. My takeaway from that game was you had to play Fedotov. Like, he needs to play games.
Yeah.
You have this 3-goalie system. And
one has now played himself out of, basically what we've seen now is one has played himself out of favor.
Right.
And that's what's happened with Kolosov. He's just not, and this is where they're at. And Tortorella talked about this, is the fact that,
it's not on him. He didn't want 3 goalies.
No. We're not saying it. This is not a case where I'm jumping on Tortorella.
No, I'm saying
they had a great situation. It's such a polar opposite of last season,
right,
where everything really, the Flyers' confidence and contention was based off the fact they had very good goaltending.
Yes.
And he's right. When Carter left, that changed everything with regards to how competitive this team can actually be. They could be in games,
Right.
but you just don't. You're always going to have in the back of your mind, especially with Sam's multiple injuries this season, you're one whatever injury away. And this is what happens with what I believe to be a groin injury. I mean, it's listed as a lower body injury, but we've seen how many times have we seen this with a goaltender where once it happens once and then that creates hesitancy, differences in the game to compensate, to make sure it doesn't happen again. And then invariably something does happen because hockey's a contact sport. And you got two unproven and the backup goalies are unproven. One, both coming in from the KHL, one coming literally the goalie who's in net right now, literally out of the cold and into your net. So last season. So yeah, it's just everything is you just don't know. It's a proverbial not a very good box of chocolates.
From the gulag to the goal. I'll say this because as an impartial third observer here of Fedotov, he's big.
Mm-hmm.
He's not particularly quick. He's got a 5-hole that he could drive a Mack truck through. He did play well in the first game in Toronto. Last night, Toronto had 6 shots after the 2 periods.
Yeah, that was wild.
Toronto should not have won that game. I thought Wall was obviously the better of the 2 goaltenders. And then finally in the 3rd period, the Leafs turned it on.
They do that a lot, though.
Yes, I mean, they've done that 3 or 4 times this year. And I don't know if this is some sort of experiment that Berube is doing, basically play rope-a-dope on the road, that, you may have to do that in certain games where a team is dominating and see if you can do it. I mean, their defense was shorthanded with Connor Timmins playing his first game in about a month, and he was responsible for both Philadelphia goals with giveaways and getting out muscled for the puck. So, but I don't think Fedotov, as he is right now, is a number 1 goaltender. Or
no, nobody's
like a possibility of being a number 1.
This has never even been. To me, this has never even been a conversation. Can he be a solid enough backup at the NHL level, Mike? I mean, the starting goalie is.
Then why did you pay him $3 million? That's what I don't understand. Although
they didn't pay him to be put it this way, they didn't pay him to be a number 1 goalie, and there's a lot of theories you can come up with as to why he was paid that number. And I'm, but at the end of the day, if they were going to keep him to stay over, because again, they're in a spot where their options were fairly limited in terms of within system. Cal Peterson isn't an option, and then you just continue to go down. You continue to roll down the line from there, and they're waiting. Next year maybe it's better, but again, you're still going to have a young Bjarnason. Maybe long term.
I mean, he won't be anywhere near the NHL, Bjarnason.
No, I don't think so either. Nor should he be. Yeah. He needs time to develop. But that's always obviously the issue.
Dodov needs time to develop. That's the whole thing.
But Dodov needed to play. Now, they were afraid, and whether they were afraid of losing him in, through if they put him through waivers.
3.1 through.
I don't think so either. But they didn't want to. Again, I think everything hinges again off of Sam's health. I think and that's the thing. It's like Sam goes down. You're rolling the dice with Kolosov. You went snake eyes. now you're on to Fedotov. And it's just it's not a good their goalie situation is not good. It's just not.
No, that's fair. But what I think Mike's talking to Craig Berube as we speak, but that's all right. He has these connections on the side. I get it.
It's an L5.
But Mike, did you find out anything?
From what?
All right. So, but the other
taking advantage of my
taking advantage of being a blowhard. I got it.
The other part,
Richard is sorry.
The other part of that game is, and this made zero sense to me from a coaching perspective. It doesn't matter what you think of Sean Couturier for 2.5 periods of that game. Sending Noah Cates out for like a final faceoff against Austin Matthews late in the game never makes sense on any level. Yet that's what they did, and then they eventually the Leafs get a goal. It's like, what are you doing?
He is back. Listen, Cates went from he was a favorite of Torts in the first season. I think Torts always has a soft spot for Noah Cates. I really do. And the fact that he's offensively producing,
right.
I feel like, again, this is a case where I think Tortorella is trying to give him if you're giving him anything plus side, he's going to give opportunities. And again, maybe Cates is turning into a center. I don't know. The production's there. At least for now.
Austin Matthews. You could put Couturier.
I agree, but there again, I would have preferred having Couturier drawing this in there.
Russ, I know that Philadelphia has the last change,
right?
But in this instance, if they put Couturier out there, who's slower, then I think the Leafs would have responded had they had the last change to putting out Tavares. Normally, Tavares is the one who takes the face-off late in the game, but he's slower than Matthews, and Matthews is now penalty killing, and he's no slouch in terms of face-off. So they've been leaning now more towards going to Matthews, and Matthews, obviously he's faster.
Couturier could have fallen on the face-off and done better. It would have caused more problems.
Fallen on the face-off. My goodness, come on.
Just saying. I'm kidding. I'm just saying. It made no sense. That move made zero sense.
I get it to a point. And again, if they are, I really think he's trying to give as many opportunities as possible to Cates because he doesn't necessarily see. Again, I think speed is a part of it there too, and Mike is right about that.
Now, on the Leaf side of things, so, a few little things that I think are, and get your perspective on this, because you both have experience of seeing somebody like Philippe Myers playing earlier in his career, and the Leafs signed him to a 2-year extension, but they signed him for $875,000.
Yeah,
which I don't think is a bad.
No, I think it's a fine deal.
Yeah, some of the things that Treliving has done in terms of getting like the role players and the bottom 6 guys signed, where he extended Simone Benoit last year, extended Bobby McMahon, who's having a pretty good year. He extended Jake McCabe, was a top 4 defenseman for them, but at a reasonable amount. Now he's extended Philippe Myers, and for less than $1 million. There's talk about them extending Steven Lorenz, and it probably won't be very expensive. But the thing
all have in common, all of those players,
we all know,
big, and they all hit.
That's the way he wants the Leafs to play.
And that's the way. If Berube likes him, and Lorenz is leading the team in hits. I think he's in the top 10 in the NHL in hits. I think he's got 3 goals, but they want that for.
They're building this team similarly to they want this team to be St. Louis North.
Yes,
that's exactly how they want it.
My issue
with lesser parts. Than what
they are, but they're following they are following that template.
What I would say about Myers, Mike, is you'll find stretches where he's fine, and then he'll go on a stretch of 10 games where you're like, "What is he doing?"
Right,
and he's just inconsistent that way. He's big and physical, but he's inconsistent.
The best you saw from Phil Myers was when he and Travis Sanheim were paired together during the bubble. I thought the two of them. It was big. It was a big, fast, decisive pairing. The thing with Myers is, and I've always kind of felt this about him, is that the physical tools are pretty good.
Yeah.
But its processing has always been the hockey processing has always been a little bit behind. Now it's possible with experience, playing in the NHL, playing around the league a little bit too. Sometimes if you bounce around, you learn different systems, and you're and by almost by osmosis, you get better because you just have reps and you see and you see a little bit more. Again, I'm fine with it, and I think Phil is an NHL defenseman.
Yeah,
how good of one? Again, I think the contract is right along the lines of what he should be getting.
Yeah, for a 6'7" right-hand shot, big guy who doesn't back away physically. I think that it can
be on. And if you get injuries, you can play him on a second. You can play him on the second pairing if you've got injuries.
Now here's better than Rassinen, who was 6'7" too. So all right.
Jeez,
who was?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was 6'7" all day long, Russ.
He was.
But here's my issue, and I aired this publicly on X this morning. And you can say whether Garnet Hathaway did what he did to Jake McCabe on purpose. Jake McCabe instigated it with him, and at the side of the Toronto net there was a tussle, and Hathaway got the better of it. And in the ensuing falling to the ice, Hathaway's knee or skate made contact with McCabe's face, and McCabe was concussed, and he's going to be out a couple weeks. Some people think it's purposeful. Some people think it was an accident. Whatever. Hathaway's that type of player.
He has a rep. He does.
He has a rep. Okay. Craig Berube puts Ryan Reeves in the lineup last night. Ryan Reeves, big, tough, big fighter, Ryan Reeves. No fights this year. None. He's gotten suspended for, 5 games for that stupid hit on Darnell Nurse. That's the only thing that guy has accomplished this year was that, and that's a negative. So they put him in the lineup. He plays 13 shifts, 6 minutes and 52 seconds. What does he do? He shoves Hathaway. He stares at him and does absolutely nothing. Ryan Reeves is a waste of a roster spot. He's 37 years old. He's mailing it in. Leaf fans see it. Anybody who's an educated observer sees it. He's making $1.35 million. He's a waiver before the deadline. You clear the space, and you get somebody.
Thank you for channeling me from 2 years ago when they signed him.
Right, Russ.
Hold on.
No. Russ wants his flowers now. You need to give him his flowers.
You said at the time, it's no big deal. He's only $1.35 million. They'll just send him on waivers and send him through. Except they don't want to, Mike. So then he's a waste. That's the part you miscalculated.
No, Russ. What I said at the time is, if Ryan Reeves plays like Ryan Reeves has played, then that's not a bad signing. And if it doesn't work, then you can waive him and clear most of that salary. And what I'm advocating right now is you send that guy not to the Marlies, you send him to Cincinnati in the ECHL and bury him there forever. Because he's worthless.
They'll do that in the playoffs. The regular season?
No, Russ. Before the deadline, you either go out and get another bottom pairing defense.
They're not going to do it.
Well, we'll see. I think
he's paid to do it. He was paid on his contract to do a job,
and he's not doing the job.
And he's not doing his job. And whether or not he's not physically able to do it anymore, then the Leafs have to recognize that as well.
Well, there was another guy who didn't play last night that's in a similar spot, Nick Delorier, same thing.
Right, but again, Nick's he
was supposed to protect Matvei Michkov. How is he doing in the protection business?
How does he protect him from Scott Lawton? Because they collided.
Kind of tough, yeah. Can't have 3 guys taking each other out, much less 2.
The thought process behind the older enforcers doesn't work. It really doesn't. I've always maintained, if you have a couple of guys in your lineup that are willing to drop the gloves, like let's say it's Nick Seeler or somebody like that, then you don't need that guy.
Yeah, the Sealer, even you have a Hathaway, because at least you're going to get something. Right. You're going to get something from Hathaway in terms of forechecking. His hands are what they are, but I have multiple purposes for Garnet Hathaway. Right. Whereas with a player that's like a Nick Delorier, like a Ryan Reeves, who's Nick has his flash moments of good skating, handle the puck for about 50 seconds, for a few seconds, and then nothing.
Yeah. And my point with Reeves, in terms of me saying he's worthless, he can't penalty kill. He can't play more than 7 minutes a night because he's too slow. He's not particularly good defensively.
Can I channel the Office here? Office Space. No, I'm going to channel Office Space right now. What is it that you would say you do here?
Yeah. Other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? I mean, it's just, I'm saying, like, if he could do any one of those things, if he could have a use other than being a fighter.
It's like the copy machine in Office Space. That's
that's why I'm saying, like, they need to.
It needs to be the red swing line stapler, Russ.
Yes. Okay. Enough with my diet.
I get it. Oh, we'll move on. I'll mention the Rangers just in this context. They managed
No
to
quit in New York. Oh, they got rid of that hashtag, didn't
Oh
they?
no, that's gone.
That's gone because they quit a few times. They've quit more than a few times.
Hashtag I would say that. The hashtag do better.
I honestly, I mean, I have to say, Russ, I cannot believe we are where we are with this team at the halfway point of the
It's
season.
insane.
They wouldn't have been. I'll say this: they wouldn't have been where they are right now had they not been hasty in the way they handled all the things that they've handled. We're not going to go over all of them. You can go back and listen to an older show. So that's a part of it. But now the part of it is the people that are left, the players that are left. Some of them aren't playing their best hockey. We all know that. And so right now, they're not a playoff team. And Chris Kreider is likely to be the next to go, or Zibanejad, one of them. And you could say, hey, this guy's got a no move, or hey, this one was so true, but it doesn't matter. At some point, they'll not want to be there. But what's really the only thing that could save them is this proposed JT Miller trade, which probably doesn't happen. And so, yeah, right now, Rangers aren't going to make the playoffs. Did anybody think that? No. I just didn't think they were a cup team, but I thought they would go a couple rounds of the playoffs, and they're dead in the water. They blew a 3-goal lead last night against Dallas.
I mean, the thing is, how can you trade Chris Kreider right now when, I mean, they're saying the problem is he's got a back injury. And if he has a back injury, who the hell's trading for him?
Yeah, somebody would still trade for him because he's a guy that will get in front of the net, and he still can score goals in big times, tons of playoff experience. They'll look at him and decide, we don't know how bad his back is. Maybe his back gets better out of New York. I don't know. We just don't know how bad his back is. I'm sure it hurts, and I'm sure it's affecting him, but maybe if another team sat him for 3-4 weeks, they'd get the old Chris Kreider back. That's what I'm getting at. This team's not doing that. They would rather scratch him and piss him off. So, that's the way they chose that.
Tank and draft James Higgins or Matt Schaefer, and everything will be all right.
To be honest, and I would draft James Higgins all day long. I'm not sure that that's what they would do. So that's a whole other situation for another day. But right now, the Rangers are a mess, maybe the biggest mess in hockey. And so, yeah.
No, I think there's an argument for who the biggest mess in hockey is here, Russ. It could be, I'll say that Vancouver rivals it because the mess there right now with Pettersson and Miller, I think, is the West Coast version of it.
They're still a potential playoff team.
But if you look at the Eastern Conference right now, even though they're playing as badly as they're playing right now, the Rangers are still a potential team. Now, but this is the thing that why I bring that up. Right now, the Buffalo Sabres are dead last in the Eastern Conference. They beat Washington in a shootout on Monday. And I had a friend of mine who's a Sabre fan said, hey, they're only 6 points behind the wild card. And I'm like, yeah, but there are 7 teams in between them and the second wild card. It's like, it's not just catching up to one team, it's catching up to 7 teams. And then last night, Detroit and Ottawa, 3-point game. Yep. Columbus and Pittsburgh, 3-point game. You had the Rangers get a loser point. So all these teams got a point or 2 points, and then the person texted me and said, oh, bleep. Because, it's not jumping over 1, it's jumping over 7. So the odds of them making the
good music, Mike. You finally heard some good music, not deep cuts in Buffalo.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So this morning, the media was regaled with the dulcet tones of Angus Young and Brian Johnson and AC/DC as they must have played the Spotify playlist of Back in Black and Hell's Bells, and I don't think they played For Those About to Rock, We Salute You, but it was
Lindy was in a mood. He was in an AC/DC mood.
And what Lindy Ruff afterward in the media availability said was, they were working on 6-on-5 drills. And he did not want the team to communicate verbally, during that, because you're not going to be able to when you're on the road and you have the goaltender pulled and you're down by a goal. So he wanted some noise that mimicked the crowd, and he was cranking AC/DC. I wish they would have cranked Rush or something a little better than AC/DC. But Russ, I just don't know if that works.
It doesn't work. I mean, does Lindy not realize that half the time when they do talk is before that final face-off when they're 6-on-5, if they get the chance, and they always talk it over, or a lot of times they do talk it over on the bench before they go out 6-on-5. So what do they really have to yell at each other on the ice when they're 6-on-5 when they're doing all this video work too? Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So I mean,
for theatrics.
My point with the Sabres is right now is that after the long winless skid, they've gone 4-2-1. But they had a 4-game road trip. They blew a 3-0 lead to Colorado. Gee, do you remember that? Does that bring back any memories? They lost 3 or 4 on the road trip, and they come back and they beat Washington. But they've gone 4-2-1 since the winless skid, and they've gained a grand total of, I think, 2 points. Right. So it's like I think it's virtually impossible for them to get back into the race. But are they going to say that? Are they going to take that stance?
No, because that last day, they're not
right. But I continue to say they're done. But they can't say that, and then they would be, they would be dumb if they did say that. So they have to be glasses half full. I'll be the glasses half empty guy.
Or no glasses.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's just Mike. That's going out there, man. That's all I'm going to say for you. That's really going out there for you.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the World Juniors, because I got back yesterday. I stayed an extra day because we had some snow in South Jersey. And so I had a chance to reflect and write about things. I did write about I didn't write about it. I actually posted an interview with Danny Nelson on NHLDraftBuzz.com, who, was a real good key contributor, Islanders draft pick. He had a nice series. But the whole thing I'm not going to get into this whole long thing about Canada, because we would have to do a whole show.
No.
We had Shane on. We pointed out the problems with Canada, so that's pretty obvious. What I would point out as far as the positives about the U.S. is you got like 6 guys who are used to playing with each other at BC, and just a lot of familiarity and great coaching. And the big takeaway not only should be, hey, these players were really good, and it was nice what they did with Johnny and Matty Gaudreau and all that. All that was great. But what really happened was that David Carl's stock went way up, and if he wanted to enter in the NHL as a coach, he could, because every team would want David Carl at this point. And we'll see.
Every team
would want him, but not every team could get him because they have a coach. But I think he embodies I think every team would like a coach like that, who communicates well with the players. Mm-hmm. He's won 2 championships with Denver. He's won back-to-back gold, which nobody's done in the U.S. for World Juniors. Mm-hmm. So I think every guy.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember who wrote the article, but I saw something about the Blackhawks should get in on David Carl, and I mean, yeah, everything you said is correct, and he's done a phenomenal job at Denver, and he's done a great job with this team. But remember, this is this is an all-star team. This is the best of the best.
Sure, but he's doing it at Denver too.
But he's assembled a group of young players and molded them into a championship squad, and that's not easy to do.
I mean, Canada had an all-star team.
Yes, but as we pointed out with Shane, they didn't pick the best team, and they maybe didn't pick the best coach. And clearly, from their failures over the last few years, they're reconsidering whether they've picked the best management. I think now the one thing, and I know you're being critical of this, Russ, but I'm going to say it anyway. Sweden is the king of the preliminary round, but when it gets down to it, this team always folds. Always folds. I mean,
I'm not going to say always and forever. I think they've had their issues. It's been a long time, no question about it. But I'm just not going to hold with always and forever on this one.
Well, okay. Have they won World Junior gold? Yes.
Mike wants to listen. Mike wants his misery blanket. Let him tuck himself in nice and warm.
He's forgetting about the goal.
He wants the Swedes to be terrible.
I'm remembering Elias Anderson throwing the silver medal in Buffalo.
Oh, here we go.
He's forgetting about that, which is
there it is. Start sharpening that. Start grinding that axe too while you're at it.
I get it. You're saying, it's happened a lot, but it is not always the narrative.
No, it's they've won more World Juniors than the Bills have won Super Bowls.
No, I mean, everybody.
There it goes. It's come on, Mike. Let's be your therapy session. Keep it coming.
I had to preempt him because I knew he was going to go down that road.
I was not.
Yeah. No, we don't have to do anything. All we have to do is put just a little bit out there, just a little bit of bait, and that jaw goes shut like a piranha.
But next show, we're going to have special guest Rex Ryan. He'll go down that road, and he'll talk about the Leafs with you, too, because he's a big Maple Leafs fan. So
there you go. Looking forward to that.
Yeah. So, and as soon as he got hired by the Bills, I don't know. I've never said that I was a Leaf fan. I'm a Sabers fan. You couldn't name a friggin' Saber if his life depended on it.
You know how Rex is. Hopefully he's not a Jets coach soon. But that's it. That's it for Off the Post. We'll catch everybody next time. Oh, one more thing. Just wanted to say, I don't know if you guys saw the Kings home game was canceled because of wildfires and everything.
It's terrible. Yeah, what's going on in Los Angeles it's like almost it looks apocalyptic. I'm not giving a hyperbole, but
it looks like a war scene. It looks like
it does.
Yeah.
And we wish everybody the best there and hope everybody can stay safe and hope they can get it under control. These 80-mile-an-hour winds, that's serious business with that stuff.
That was always the concern with this happening. So
So now
hoping all the best.
And we'll
take care, everybody.
Bye.